Ohio is about 45,000 square miles. Most people drive through without stopping. That is a mistake. This state contains more ancient earthen mounds than almost anywhere else on Earth. Some are burial chambers that held artifacts brought from 1,000 miles away. Some are geometric enclosures so precisely built they still challenge engineers to explain. One is the largest geometric earthwork complex on the planet, which until January 2025 was a private golf course. And one is a quarter-mile-long serpent coiled on a meteor crater, containing no burials and no artifacts, with no agreement on who built it or why. That last one is number 1 today. Make sure you stay with us for it. If you are not already subscribed, hit that button now. We cover stories like this every week. Ancient sites, forgotten history, the geography most people drive past without asking questions. Today we are counting down 12 mysterious ancient mounds in Ohio no one can fully explain. Number 12. Story Mound. The burial mound your neighbors don't know about. Drive down Delano Avenue in Chillicothe, Ohio. Single-story houses, parked cars, a quiet residential street. And then, behind a chain-link fence, rising from a small lot between the driveways, a perfect earthen dome, 5 feet tall, 95-foot base. Built somewhere between 800 BC and AD 100, the Adena people did not simply pile dirt over their dead. They built a circular timber structure first, roughly 15 feet across, placed the body inside with ritual deposits, then buried the entire building under accumulating layers of earth. Excavation in May 1897 confirmed this sequence. A young man, positioned facing north, accompanied by 6 flint spear points. It also confirmed something no prior excavation had shown: the circular timber building itself. Story Mound provided the first documented evidence of this architectural pattern. Everything archaeologists later understood about Adena burial construction across the region was shaped in part by what was found on this street. The property was donated to Ohio in 1950. The neighborhood was already fully built by then, free to visit, fenced, still there. A 2-0-year-old burial chamber between suburban driveways, and most people on the block could not tell you what it is. Number 11. Alligator Effigy Mound. The monster that isn't an alligator. Alligators have never lived in Ohio, and yet, the alligator mound is 250 feet long, 76 feet wide, and about 4 feet high, a 4-legged creature with a round head and a curling tail, sitting on a hilltop 150 feet above Raccoon Creek Valley in Granville, one of only 2 animal effigy mounds in the entire state. Radiocarbon dating in 1999 pushed its construction date to approximately 950 CE, about 1,000 years later than previously assumed, and attributed it to the Fort Ancient culture rather than the Hopewell. The leading interpretation from archaeologist Brad Lepper is that the mound represents the underwater panther, a powerful supernatural creature from eastern woodland mythology that inhabits rivers and pulls people under. When early settlers asked what the figure depicted, native people described a fierce water creature. The settlers reached for the nearest equivalent they knew. That was over 2 centuries ago. The 1848 survey by Squeer and Davis shows what appears to be an umbilical cord depicted on the figure, essential in Algonquian cosmology for spirits' journey after death, and a detail that eliminates alligators, lizards, and opossums from consideration. The mound is intact and open to the public, free of charge. Whatever it actually depicts, it has carried the wrong name for longer than most nations have existed. Number 10. Miamisburg Mound, the mountain in the suburbs. Exit I-75 south of Dayton and drive through a completely ordinary suburban streetscape. Then something rises above the rooftops that has no business being there. The Miamisburg Mound stands 65 feet tall with a base circumference of 800 feet, containing approximately 54,000 cubic yards of earth, the largest conical burial mound in Ohio and the second largest in eastern North America. Built by the Adena culture beginning around 800 BC, on a ridge 100 feet above the Great Miami River, it is visible for several miles. The Adena did not build this in a single effort. They began with one high-status burial and returned over generations, each time adding more burials and more earth. A living accumulation spanning centuries. In 1869, excavators went 24 feet down and found a layer of flat stones arranged like overlapping roof shingles, suggesting the mound once had a stone-faced exterior, something otherwise unattested for Adena construction. A second burial vault appeared at 36 feet. No professional excavation has been conducted since 1869. 54,000 cubic yards of earth, moved one basket at a time, by people with no metal tools and no wheels, for reasons they never wrote down. Around AD 400, the culture that built it vanished from Ohio's archaeological record. There are 116 steps to the top, no admission fee. Whatever lies below 36 feet is still there. Number 9. Tremper Mound and Works, and 36 smoking pipes and a great house in the ground. In 1915, archaeologist William C. Mills excavated an irregularly shaped mound in Scioto County, about 5 miles northwest of Portsmouth. He expected a burial mound. What he found instead was the burnt remnant of a massive multi-roomed structure, a building, and inside one of its chambers, a cache of over 500 deliberately broken artifacts, including 145 stone smoking pipes. Of those pipes, roughly 85 to 90 are animal effigy pipes: black bears, gray wolves, beavers, otters, great horned owls, herons, snapping turtles, carved with naturalistic precision detailed enough for zoologists to identify the species. 16% were made from catlinite, a red stone quarried exclusively in southwest Minnesota, over 700 miles away. The mound dates to approximately 100 BC. What the Hopewell did here was deliberate and complete. They built the structure, used it for ceremony, and when those ceremonies concluded, ritually broke every artifact inside, a practice called killing objects, meant to release their spiritual power, set the building on fire, and piled earth over everything. The irregular shape of the mound above mirrors the floor plan of the building below. 19th century archaeologists assumed it was an animal effigy. It was a building. The 145 pipes are held by the Ohio History Center in Columbus. Most are not currently on public display. The mound is preserved within a 706-acre nature preserve managed by Ark of Appalachia. They destroyed everything on purpose before they buried it. That act still has no fully satisfying explanation. Number 8. Sape Earthworks, the site they destroyed to save it. The large burial mound at Sape Earthworks, 17 miles west of Chillicothe, is a modern reconstruction, built in the 1920s from survey maps drawn in the 1840s. The original was excavated between 1925 and 1928 by archaeologists who were, by today's standards, looters. They were more interested in objects to sell to collectors and museums than in documentation. They dismantled the mound. What stands there now is not what the Hopewell built. The original was significant. The central burial mound measured 240 feet by 160 feet by 30 feet tall, the third largest Hopewell burial mound ever built. The site once enclosed 121 acres with nearly 10,000 feet of earthen walls. Excavators recovered 122 burials, thousands of freshwater pearls, copper from Isle Royale, mica from the Carolinas, and woven textiles more than 200 years old. Those textiles survived because they had been lying beneath copper breastplates. Copper's antimicrobial properties prevented decay for over a millennium. One piece of linen was not a burial shroud. It had been placed as a votive offering, a gift left in the mound for reasons that remain unknown. Forensic photography later recovered its dye patterns, revealing colors invisible to the naked eye for 12 centuries. About 10% of the original earthworks survive. The site is now a UNESCO World Heritage Unit. The mound built to honor the dead was taken apart in the 1920s, so someone could sell what was inside. The one you see there now is not the one they built. Number 7. Fort Ancient Earthworks. Named wrong, built for the wrong reasons, by the wrong people. The site is not a fort. It was not built by the Fort Ancient culture, and it was never used for defense. Every element of the name is a misidentification. Fort Ancient, in Warren County about 35 miles northeast of Cincinnati, is the largest hilltop enclosure in North America, over 3.5 miles of earthen and rock walls enclosing a 100-acre plateau, overlooking the Little Miami River 235 feet below. Built by the Hopewell culture approximately 2,000 years ago. When settlers encountered the walls, they assumed military construction. The walls have between 67 and 70 deliberate openings in them. No fort works that way. No battle debris has ever been found here. No evidence of permanent habitation inside the walls exists. Whoever came here came for ceremonies, and then left. One feature in the North Fort has no equivalent anywhere in the known Hopewell world. Stone-faced walkways, a circle of timber posts, and gravel-filled trenches arranged around a central pit containing bright red-orange burned soil. Sterile, no artifacts, no parallels, no explanation. Ohio's oldest state park since 1891, a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2023. Museum, reconstructed Hopewell House, and 3 miles of trails. You enter through one of the 67 gateways. They named it a fort and were wrong about everything. The people who built it left no record of what it actually was. If you are finding this interesting, give the video a thumbs up and let us know in the comments which of these mounds surprised you most. We read everyone. We still have 6 entries to go, and the stories get considerably harder to look away from. Number 6. High Bank Works. Newark's secret twin, pointing back at itself. 3 miles south of Chillicothe, at the confluence of the Scioto River and Paint Creek, there is a site you cannot see from the road. No visible earthwork walls at ground level. LiDAR imaging reveals what is there. An octagon connected to a circle, almost exactly matching the geometry of the octagon earthworks in Newark, 60 miles to the north. These are the only two paired circle and octagon complexes known in the Hopewell world. Both circles measure approximately 1,050 feet in diameter, confirmed by survey. Both are believed to align with the northernmost rising of the moon during its 18.6-year cycle. Archaeologist Brad Lepper found that the axis of the Highbank Works is oriented at precisely 90 degrees to that of Newark's octagon. Extend either alignment and it points directly at the other site, 60 miles away. A 2007 peer-reviewed archaeoastronomy paper confirmed this relationship using LiDAR and satellite imagery. There is a hidden geometric connection as well. The area of the perfect square inscribed inside the Newark octagon equals the area of the Newark Great Circle. Both circles match the Highbank Circle in dimension. These are not coincidental figures. They represent a shared unit of measurement used with engineering precision at two sites built 2,000 years ago. Highbank Works is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is accessible only by prior arrangement with the National Park Service. Two identical astronomical complexes, each oriented so its axis points directly at the other, 60 miles apart across Ohio. We do not know how the Hopewell coordinated that across this distance. We do not know what either site was meant to say to the other. Number 5. Mound City. 23 ancient tombs plowed under by the U.S. Army. In 1917, the United States federal government purchased land 3 miles north of Chillicothe and converted it into Camp Sherman, the third largest World War I training facility in the United States. 2,000 buildings, more than 20 miles of streets, up to 40,000 soldiers at one time, with over 124,000 passing through the camp over the course of the war. On that land were at least 23 burial mounds arranged within a low earthen enclosure covering approximately 15 acres, built by the Hopewell culture between roughly 200 BC and AD 500. Gas lines were laid across the complex. Mounds were leveled to accommodate barracks. Artifacts dug up during construction were pocketed as souvenirs. Henry Chatrone of the Ohio Historical Society intervened and persuaded the Army to spare the largest mound. Most of the others were damaged or destroyed. After the armistice, the Ohio Historical Society excavated and restored the site between 1920 and 1922. The mounds you walk among at Mound City today are, in most cases, 20th century reconstructions rebuilt from Squeer and Davis's 1840s survey maps. What the Hopewell actually did here was specific. They built charnel houses, timber structures where the dead were laid with offerings. When the ceremony concluded, the structure was burned and a mound was raised over the ashes. Each of the 23 mounds covers one such building. Objects inside came from across the continent: copper from the Great Lakes, obsidian from the Rocky Mountains, shells from the Gulf Coast, mica from the Carolinas. The earliest artifacts from Mound City, excavated by Squeer and Davis in the 1840s before any legal protection existed, are held at the British Museum in London. More than 170 years later, they are still there. Ground-penetrating radar surveys in 2022 and 2023 found previously unknown burial chambers still below the surface, unopened, lined with logs, containing copper breastplates and obsidian blades. The mounds were rebuilt. The artifacts are in England. The chambers below have not been opened. And within 12 miles of this site, there were once no fewer than 10 other massive earthwork complexes. Almost all of them are gone now. Number 4. The Great Hopewell Road, the 60-mile highway no one can prove existed. Here is the thing about the Great Hopewell Road. The confirmed section is 5 miles long. The proposed full extent is 60 miles. Whether the rest ever existed, buried somewhere under Ohio farmland between Newark and Chillicothe, is one of the more carefully contested problems in North American archaeology. The confirmed section is called the Van Voris Walls. It begins immediately south of the Newark Octagon earthworks, two parallel earthen walls nearly 200 feet apart, running south-southwest. Documented as early as 1848. In 1862, Charles and James Salisbury traced it for 6 miles south of Newark and noted in an accompanying document that it continued much further. In the 1990s, archaeologist Brad Lepper proposed the road extended the full 60 miles to Chillicothe, connecting the Great Lunar Observation Complex at Newark in the north to the burial mound concentrations near Chillicothe in the south. A 2016 peer-reviewed paper in the Ohio Archaeological Journal reviewed LiDAR data, satellite imagery, and geophysical surveys, and found the evidence convincing in some sections but incomplete south of Ramp Creek. A 2007 archaeoastronomy paper concluded the road most likely connected the two centers. The road, if it was a road, was not for trade. The Hopewell had no horses and no wheels. It was 200 feet wide, far beyond practical necessity. It ran in a straight line, ignoring terrain and water sources. Scholar William Romaine has linked its alignment to the Milky Way and proposed it may have functioned as a path of souls, the Hopewell carrying the remains of their honored dead from Newark, southward toward burial. The southern terminal point has never been definitively located. It may be at High Bank Works. It may be permanently buried under Chillicothe's 19th century development. There is a real possibility that the destination of one of the most ambitious construction projects in ancient North America is now inaccessible. What remains above ground? 2.5 miles of earthen walls and a very straight line on a LiDAR map, pointing at something 60 miles south that no one can find. Number 3. Portsmouth Earthworks. One of the largest prehistoric mound complexes ever built, now under a city. Go to Portsmouth, Ohio. Find Mound Park at the corner of Hutchins and Grant Streets. Walk past the playground. Near the paved path beside the Ohio River, there is a horseshoe-shaped earthen mound. Original, prehistoric, approximately 2,000 years old. That is what remains of the entire complex. Before Portsmouth was founded in 1803, this area held one of the most extensive earthwork systems the Hopewell culture ever constructed, spanning more than 25 square miles across Scioto County, Ohio, and extending across the Ohio River into Kentucky. The complex occupied ground now covered by Portsmouth, West Portsmouth, Lucasville, Sciotoville, Wheelersburg, and 2 Kentucky communities. 4 sets of parallel earthen embankments radiated outward from the central twin horseshoe mounds, forming ceremonial avenues in the intermediate compass directions. In 1847, Squeer and Davis documented nearly 20 miles of mounds and embankments, and noted that many sites had still been omitted from their map. Portsmouth was founded in 1803. Earthen walls became building fill. Enclosures were built over. Avenues became streets. By the time systematic archaeology arrived, most of the complex was under the city and permanently inaccessible. Recent excavations at Mound Park recovered obsidian from the Yellowstone Shale region, mica and crystal quartz from the North Carolina mountains, and large quantities of Flint Ridge chert, the same continental trade materials found at every other major Hopewell site. In 2019, 2 independent scholars proposed that one section of the Portsmouth complex forms an 8-mile-long female effigy, possibly the longest effigy mound ever constructed anywhere, depicting a figure from Native American creation mythology. Much of the proposed effigy was destroyed by urban development before anyone recognized what it might be. The Horseshoe Mound is on the National Register of Historic Places. The rest is under a city with a playground and a paved path. And somewhere beneath those streets, there may be a portrait of a woman that stretched for 8 miles and was paved over before anyone looked closely enough to see her. Number 2. Newark Earthworks. The lunar computer they turned into a golf course. For most of the 20th century, access to the Octagon Earthworks in Newark, Ohio required booking a round of golf. The Mound Builders Country Club had leased the site from the state since the 1910s. A legal challenge ended with an Ohio Supreme Court ruling in December 2022. The Ohio History Connection completed the transfer and opened the earthworks to the public on January 1, 2025. What golfers had been driving across? The largest known complex of geometric earthworks on the planet. The Newark earthworks cover approximately 4.5 square miles and contain roughly 7 million cubic feet of earth. The octagon itself consists of 8 earthen walls, each approximately 550 feet long and 5 to 6 feet high, enclosing 55 acres, connected to a circular observatory circle of approximately 20 acres. Built between roughly AD 1 and AD 400, using pointed sticks, clamshell hose, and earth carried one basket at a time. In the 1970s, researchers Ray Hively and Robert Horn discovered that all 8 walls of the octagon align with specific positions in the Moon's 18-6-year cycle, the northernmost and southernmost extremes of moonrise and moonset, all 8 positions accounted for. The probability of this occurring by chance is considered vanishingly small. There are mathematical relationships embedded in the site as well. The area of the perfect square inscribed inside the octagon equals the area of the great circle elsewhere in the Newark complex. The same unit of measurement, 1,054 feet, or its halves and doubles, appears at Hopewell earthwork sites across North America. On October 11, 2025, for the first time in over a century, The public gathered at the octagon to watch the northernmost moonrise. They stood in the dark with red light flashlights. The moon rose at exactly the point in the wall the Hopewell had built to mark it. It had been rising at that exact point on schedule for 2,000 years. Nobody had been allowed to watch it for most of the 20th century because of the golf course. Number 1. Great Serpent Mound. The serpent on the crater, and nobody knows who put it there. You approach through Adams County on narrow roads that feel slightly wrong. The hills around you are shaped differently from the ones you drove through to get here. The rock along the roadsides looks different, and you cannot quite say why. You reach a ridge, a parking lot, a small museum, an observation tower. You climb the tower, look down. Below you, coiling along the ridge, is a serpent a quarter-mile long. The body is 22 to 24 feet wide and 3 feet high. It curves in smooth coils the full length of the ridge. At one end, the tail spirals. At the other, the head opens, jaws spread, enclosing a large oval shape. No one knows what the oval represents. Archaeologists have proposed an egg, the sun, the moon, a cosmic symbol, and simply the open jaws. No consensus exists on any of it. The serpent stretches approximately 1,348 feet. It is the largest serpent effigy in the world. It was built on the rim of a meteor impact crater, a crypto-explosion structure 5 miles wide, formed roughly 300 million years ago, which explains why the terrain on the way in felt wrong. Here is what makes this different from everything else on this list. The mound contains no human remains, no burial objects, no artifacts of any kind. Nothing was left inside. It is not a tomb. Whatever purpose it served has never been established. Harvard archaeologist Frederick Ward Putnam excavated here in the 1880s and dated charcoal samples to around 300 BC, supporting an Adena origin. In 1991, radiocarbon dating of other samples returned approximately AD 1070, placing construction during the Fort Ancient Culture period instead. Both dates came from legitimate excavations. They contradict each other. The debate over which culture built this mound, or whether more than one had a hand in it at different times, is ongoing and has not been resolved. 3 separate cultures have been proposed as builders. None of those attributions is universally accepted. The mound aligns with astronomical events. The serpent's head points toward the summer solstice sunset. The coils have been linked by various researchers to solstices, equinoxes, and lunar positions. Whether those alignments were intentional is also debated. Harvard purchased the land in 1886 to preserve it. The Ohio History Connection has managed it since 1900. There is a walking path along the full length of the serpent and a museum at the base covering both the archaeology and the geology of the crater. What you cannot get standing on that ridge is an answer. The carbon dates conflict. The oval at the serpent's head has no agreed interpretation. The builders left nothing inside, left no record, and left no name. The crater was there 300 million years before any of this. Someone chose this specific ridge, this geological anomaly in the hills of Adams County, to build the largest serpent effigy on Earth. Then they left, and in all the centuries since, no one has been able to fully explain why. Ohio still has hundreds of these mounds, most unmarked, some on private land, many in parks and cemeteries and ordinary neighborhoods. What you have seen here is a fraction of what was built and a fraction of what has been lost. For me, the one that stays is Mound City. 23 burial mounds that outlasted empires, survived almost everything, and then met the US Army in 1917, rebuilt from old drawings. The artifacts in London, the unopened chambers still below the surface. Which entry surprised you most? Let us know in the comments. If you want more research like this into overlooked history and ancient places, subscribe. We do this every week.